All right, so let's go through the syllabus first. Then we'll talk about all of the required events you have to go to with penalty stuff. And is this the class? All right, so get the syllabus first. We can zoom in. Why does it keep flickering? Well, I guess we'll figure that out later.
Budget cuts.
It's what? Budget cuts?
Maybe it's Roku's fault.
It's, you think?
I don't know.
Could be.
I'm trying to switch to Roku. It's like you should be watching TV right now.
All right, so this is the class where we create our own programming language. So all these pedestrian programming classes you've had up to this point where you use these dumb languages that have already been created, now those are a thing of the past because we're like, you know what, why use a language that's been time tested and used in industry and all this stuff when we can learn about the core concepts of how languages are actually built under the hood and make our own. So the textbook we use in here, this is like this old thing, you can just shred that. Isn't that way they give out in 150 or something? We use this book called Essentials of Programming Languages, 3rd edition. It's from MIT Press. I give you a link to it on the Blackboard. There are readily available PDFs of that I would strongly encourage you not to use. You should instead order it from MIT Press or Amazon. So here's also a Scheme reference. We're going to be using a language in here called Scheme. Remember back in your first programming class, the 200 class, when we talked about there's 3 kinds of programming languages? We had procedural, object-oriented, and functional. And we kind of mentioned, we're not really going to talk about functional. Scheme is a functional programming language. And at first you're going to hate it, then you're going to love it. How many of you don't like recursion? Probably several people aren't huge fans of recursion, or it's difficult to make your mind think recursively. The good news is that Scheme, technically, the core language does not support loops. There actually is a loop function in it, but I'm going to say it right now, you're not allowed to use it in this class. It's been added, but I can't use that one. So as far as you're concerned, Scheme does not support loops, which means that the way to accomplish loops is through recursion. All right, so by the time you're done with this class, you will very much think recursively. In fact, you may have trouble going back to thinking iteratively. All right, and just a little kicker for this, I have the quote somewhere from a student. There was a student 4 or 5 years ago who graduated and actually got a job doing Scheme programming for the Department of Defense and is making like, I don't know, $275,000 a year living in Baltimore as a Scheme programmer. So it's possible this could turn into a lucrative career for you if you end up liking Scheme. The reason I choose Scheme in here, well, A, the book uses it, and this is the book I've been using for a long, long time. It's also the appropriate language in that we are creating our own programming language. Therefore, we don't want to rely on the underlying development language that we're using to do too many things for us. So Scheme is a very, very, very simple language. There's only going to be like a handful of functions that we'll actually use from Scheme to create our own programming language. Now, for the first probably 25% of the class, you're not necessarily going to feel like we're creating programming languages. But we're going to be doing these little puzzle assignments using Scheme to solve these weird problems that seem like, well, what does this have to do with programming languages? I promise you they do. So later on, when we start writing interpreters, you'll come back and say, oh, this is kind of like this problem before that didn't sound like a programming language thing, but now I see it actually was. All right, so they kind of lull you into it. Blah, 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 normal stuff. Assignments, quizzes, 60% of your grade. Midterm final, my normal policy, if you do better on the final exam than you did on the midterm, I'll replace your midterm exam score with your final exam score. Questions on grading? The normal Lippmann class. Okay, so now let's go to these dates that you need to save. I'm going to get all the Bible homeworks up. I got several of them up so far, but I'm going to have all of them up right off the bat. We're going through the book of Matthew. If you want to do them all up front, you can. Otherwise, they're staggered 1 week a time, and they're due on Sunday by midnight following, for that week. So you're already covered for your first 5 weeks of class, but I'll get the rest of them up today. Let's go back here. This semester, we have a new Tech Talk series that's coming from, what is it? Are we good? Sort of?
Yeah, it's good.
It's like it changes resolution, doesn't it? Oh. So this semester, we have a new Tech Talk series that's being hosted by the Grace group. And there are 7 Tech Talk events where we're bringing in people from the tech industry, like legit folks from off campus who are high ups or important folks in a tech company to come in and talk about what industry is really like we can say from their perspective. And I've kind of encouraged them to come in and give the talk from the perspective of if they were talking to their 20-year-old self, what would they want to share with their 20-year-old self? And this is going to be over in the new business building. If you haven't been over there yet, computer science has some maker space where we're going to have 3D printers and things like that. So it's going to be right outside of that in an area called the Collaboratorium. With is a collaboration area over there. And that's where we'll have the talks. They are from 6 to 8 p.m. on the dates that are in this folder. We're going to run them like traditional meetups where, there'll be like a 30-minute period for like networking with folks. We're going to have folks from off campus come there. Also, we're going to have the MBA students invited to this as well, and some business students, so you can kind of intermingle with them for another required thing that I'll talk about. Then there's going to be about a 45-minute to an hour talk, followed by, some question answer time, things like that. So it's blocked off for 2 hours, but chances are it'll last for an hour and 20 minutes, something in that ballpark. We'll have some food and drinks there and stuff like that. Nothing fancy, but focus will be on the speakers. There is going to be a 2-week period. I think I actually know the weeks now. I don't have all the speakers on this thing yet, but we're going to have the senior VP of IT infrastructure for Acuity come down and talk, where a lot of our top graduates have been going and working. And then 2 weeks later, former Concordia computer science students who work at Acuity are going to come and do a panel talk, which is going to give us the former CUW computer science perspective on what their bosses said 2 weeks before that. Mm-hmm. So that should be, and we have that set up. The bosses picked the date, and then the students were able to do it 2 weeks later.
Do the bosses and students know they're talking with them?
Yeah. So these are the dates for the Tech Talk. The very first one is the 4th, which is coming up, right? When's the 4th? Next week?
Yes.
That's a student is in charge of each of these dates. That's V's date. So when is the 4th? 4th is next Wednesday night. Okay. So next Wednesday night, and the person who's going to be speaking at that is a guy named Mike, who is like the head of software engineering for the company that V interned at this past summer. Really bright guy. I think he's going to be a pretty dynamic speaker. In any case, I cordially require you to attend the event. So you got 2 options. As with, now I do want to clarify that the alternative assignments for these are not penalty assignments. It's an alternative assignment in the event that you just simply cannot make it work. You have another class or something like that. Hackathons are penalty assignments. So you can either attend the event and then write a few paragraphs summary of the speaker's points and how you can apply what you learned to your future decision making. That's kind of the goal of what they're going to be speaking. Or if you can't attend, write a 4-page paper answering the following questions. Who was the speaker? What does the company do? You could double space it. What does the company do? What kinds of tech-related jobs are available at the company? What skills must a tech-related employee possess at the company to get a job? And would you consider working for this company? Why or why not? Okay.
What is the font size for that?
The font size, I don't know, 8. I don't know, normal font size. What is that, 11 or 12?
11 or 12.
Whatever.
Yeah, 12
Yeah.
is MLA.
All right, so in any case, shut up! In any case, there are 7 Tech Talk events with all of the dates put in here now. I strongly encourage you to actually go to the events. We've specifically picked speakers that I think would be very beneficial to undergrads to hear. We do have some events we're partnering with the business school as well. I'm not requiring those, but I'll put those up as events I encourage you to go to. All right. So questions on Tech Talks. They're roughly every 2 weeks. So the first one is the 4th, then the 18th. 10
On
to
Wednesdays?
Huh? There is one that goes to a different night. They're almost all on the same night, but there was one where there was going to be a scheduling conflict in the room.
Well, I hope you like writing. I'm taking off every time.
Well, whose class are you in?
I'm not in the class. That falls on my shift Friday. So I'm just gonna take
Yeah.
off every time.
My condolences.
Can't forget that.
So,
I'm gonna ask. You're going to.
all right. So questions about the Tech Talks? So I'm going to see all of you there most of the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
is there food?
I said there was going to be
Oh,
food.
there is? Okay, sweet.
Everybody heard me say that, right?
I listened to everything except that one part.
Well, now actually, each week there is for each of these sessions, one of your several of them are in this room. One of your classmates in computer science is in charge of that event. So they were either going to help get the speakers, although I've helped quite a bit get the speakers lined up for this, but they are in charge of like the food and that kind of stuff for the event. So V is in charge of the food for next week. The department will pay for the food, but she's in charge of organizing it. And yeah, you don't have to, you might get reimbursed, or I'll give you my credit card to go buy it and then, whatever, but make sure food and drink is there.
So if food is bad, be able to be.
Well, for next week. Then
Just order whatever.
who's got the one for 9/18?
I think that's me.
That's you? So that'll be his fault. I think Blaine is the last week, right?
Yeah, I'm the weird one that's on Tuesday instead, I think.
Mm.
So then we can order whatever.
Well, be somewhat reasonable with the it's like what we did. We brought in 400 lobsters. They're still alive. We're gonna do a Korean barbecue style.
Kill them and make a blood sacrifice.
And just to keep it real tech-centric, we're actually going to do the cooking over a preheated 3D printer extruder. That would actually be pretty funny. You flip them over, you got this pan over it. Like, man, that's hot.
Yeah, that's wild.
Okay, so any questions on Tech Talks? All right, something else to look forward to this semester is there are 2 hackathons.
Dang.
That's twice the required.
Yeah.
Well, one of them, though.
And you thought that the penalty assignment for the first one was bad.
Oh boy.
So, first hackathon is our traditional hackathon. We're calling it the Lady Ada Hackathon this year. So that is from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on 10/5. We will probably also have that down in the new collaboratorium. That's going to be a weird word to say.
Yeah.
We do need a name for our makerspace down there. So if anybody has fun names that don't suck,
The Gonzalez party room.
Gonzalez Party Room, GPR. There's possible, if we could work him into it somehow, I would be supportive.
Okay. Okay.
But in any case, this is our normal 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. hackathon. Counts as 3 homework assignments. So it's 12 hours long. You can either show up, take a picture of Mr. Gonzalez, submit it, and all these things, any submissions for this is always going to be the Sunday following it at midnight. Okay, so although for the hackathon, I think I set it up to be a week later, instead of the very next day. Yeah.
It's due Sunday.
Yeah. The penalty assignment for that traditionally has been something like a 12-page paper. I'll announce that at least a week before the hackathon. So if that is something that you are either choosing to do or you absolutely just cannot attend for some more important reason, that's on you. That's fine. You can give me a bad review. I don't care. So it's I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, but we're not in the Blackboard course yet, right?
Blackboard course for.
You don't have access.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 470.
Should we be in there?
You should be in there.
Yeah, we're not though.
Are you lying?
It's not there right now.
Oh, you know what?
This button.
You are in the Blackboard course. I just haven't released the course.
Oh, well, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense then.
Yeah.
Here, we can do that right now.
That'd be cool.
Nice.
Because I always prep this stuff weeks ahead of time. It's just weeks.
Yeah, I got you.
I think is it under customization? Properties. I can change the name, Mr. Gonzalez language thingy.
Honestly, it's no better.
Make course available. All right, if you refresh, it should be there now.
Sweet.
Okay, so that's the first hackathon. Now, second hackathon, this is kind of before most of your time, but PayPal used to put on this big hackathon called Battle Hacks.
Mm-hmm.
And we would take teams, they were in 14 cities across the world, these Battle Hacks. And 4 of the cities were in the United States. And we would caravan to, the easy one was Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
We would caravan to New York City, Los Angeles, and Raleigh, North Carolina. And in fact, we have some good video from the 14-hour drive to Raleigh. This is, how many of you remember Josh Curcio? So they had their team. So I'm following them because I flew there. I'm not driving in 14 hours. But but I was following all of them. We had them on the app so I can see where they were and stuff like that. So I get this message from Curcio like at 3 a.m. because I don't leave till the next morning for my flight, right? And I probably still have the video somewhere. I'll try to find it and show it to everybody. But it's just, he's pulled over on the side of the road with like the 4 people that were in his car. There's just sirens and stuff everywhere, right? major police presence. So apparently this was during the drive. They're somewhere in, I don't know, Ohio or something like that. The car in front of him, I guess the guy must have fallen asleep at the wheel or something like that. So he goes off the road, jumps the ditch, and flies into a tree. So he's like 15 feet up in a tree with the car stuck in the tree. So they pull over to go see if this guy's okay, because they're pretty much assuming not okay, right? Apparently the guy was fine. He was mad that they called the police.
What?
I'm guessing he must have been on something or didn't have a license or insurance or all of the above, whatever it was. So I get this message from Curcio's, like a video thing. It's like, we're heading to Raleigh. He tells me the whole story. But anyway, so this was kind of what a hackathon, what I would say a hackathon done right looks like. PayPal was paying for it, right? So it was pretty good stuff, pretty good food, good sponsors. Some companies you've probably heard of were like, how many of you have heard of a company called Twilio? All right, so Twilio was initially released. Their first week in business was at one of those PayPal Chicago hackathons. Twilio is a API for doing SMS and robocalling and things like that. In fact, that first week in Chicago, there was a prize for what was the best use of the Twilio API, and that was actually that team also won the hackathon where they had an app. I'm not sure how well, they claimed that it did a really good job of detecting the difference between a bump and a pothole, but let's just assume that's true. It was a prototype. But you would put it on your dash, and as you were driving, if you hit potholes, it would figure out where you were, and it would send texts and robocall the aldermen in the area complaining about the pothole. But it would also, there was another company there that did something kind of like GoFundMe. It wasn't GoFundMe, it was something like that though, where it would use their API to create a GoFundMe so you can crowdsource the repair of the pothole. And then they would start just bombarding the aldermans for the area with text messages and phone calls, just at all hours.
That's actually
Yeah, I mean, it was a cool idea, but
probably annoying. But
Yeah.
funny.
yeah, but they won that hackathon. But so then the way BattleHack worked is you had these 14 cities. The winner from all 14 cities then qualified for the World Championships, which was at PayPal headquarters in California. And then they would, when you won, I don't know how many of you have seen, let's go to Slack here real quick. Isn't my, I got something in general, don't I? Yeah. So that's me at BattleHack. You can see that. So I'm wielding 2 battle axes. Now what's funny here, how many of you have heard me refer to a former student known as Amish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is actually Amish squatting behind me, holding that other battle axe. They did a whole story on this. This was actually the Raleigh thing where we only got so much support from the university for money to get us there, so we crowdfunded it.
They paid for the rest, right?
PayPal paid for our trip.
Nice.
And then they did a whole story on us and things like that. So it was kind of a cool thing. But those are the trophies, those battle axes. Go ahead.
So, are we going to be traveling there or are they coming here?
It's here. So anyways, PayPal stopped doing the battle hacks. The battle hacks were actually done by Braintree, which at the time was a PayPal company. Now they're not a PayPal company, they're a separate company. And when they did that split, they stopped doing the hackathon. I'm not sure why. It was probably just a business decision. It was taking too much time or something like that. But regardless, they stopped doing them, which was sad because these were, really fun for us to go to. Well, we're probably not going to hit battle hack standards initially, but we are getting a whole bunch of sponsors, including Acuity, Sargento, people with actual money. So there should be cheese there at the very least. Yeah, should be cheese there too. And we are a dry campus, so there won't be any alcohol, even though the battle hacks did have alcohol.
Really?
Yeah. But we'll try to do everything. We'll try to do everything except that. Maybe we can have, for those of age, we'll have like a rotating trolley that takes you to Highland House, and then we'll work out with Highland House to stay open 24 hours for that. That's not a horrible idea. I have to check with the university to make sure they think that is like a cool. That might be frowned upon. Yeah, it is a.
When you bring it up, don't tell them that you want the bar open. Just say you want the restaurant open.
Yeah, for like a food. Yeah, and if the students happen to partake.
Yeah, exactly.
We definitely can't. We definitely can't use the Freddy bus.
Are we doing something like this?
the annual Concordia bar crawl.
Are we doing something like this
Yes.
Okay, good.
But in any case, how many of you have not been over to the new building yet? Okay, if you have not been over there yet, go over there. It is really, really, really cool. And you see this color, this wall color? And we have one accent wall in every one of our rooms now. This matches the color of the accent walls over in the new building. We're going to be doing lots of collaborations with them this semester. And so we're working with Dan Sem, who's the dean of the business school. He's helping us put on this, because it's the Batterman Business School. He's helping us put on this, our version of a battle hack. That might not end up being the final name of it or something, but, you know, we're trying to actually do something with something in like remembrance. And any of you know the former, well, I guess he wasn't, this is Christian Albano. He's from the pharmacy school. Maybe you recognize the name. Well, he was a pharmacy prof over in the pharmacy school, and him and I had a business that did a bunch of incubator stuff with Dan Sem called MedSync. And I guess it was 3 years ago now. Christian was like 48, died of a heart attack. So business kind of fell apart, blah, blah, blah. But so there's going to be something surrounding him with this hackathon or something like that. But for right now, we're calling it Battle Hack. Because we kind of want to start a tradition with that. Now, this does also happen in line with what is called Startup Week Wisconsin, and there's specifically a Startup Week Milwaukee. A guy named Matt Cordio is going to help us advertise this. So this is not a us-only hackathon. We're going to invite people from other universities. We have a group of people coming up from Elmhurst College in the Chicago area. And we're going to try to get some others. So the hope is we have 75 or 100 people, and you'll be able to, I mean, I will create groups, but if you would really prefer to go there and kind of be able to rub shoulders or be in a group with somebody from other universities, we want to take advantage of that. You know, I want everybody to have a learning experience, so I'll probably try to recruit some of our more senior students to help with some of our younger students. But if you really want to be able to collaborate with some other teams, we can, some other schools, that's certainly not an unreasonable thing to do. This one is a 24-hour hackathon, a traditional hackathon. It's going to start on the evening of a Friday. So this is actually, it starts at 8 p.m. Here, let me edit that here real quick. So 8 p.m. to 8 p.m. So it goes 24 hours. We'll have cots and stuff set up for people who want to sleep, who need sleep. And there are people, I mean, it's common, but the common 24-hour hackathon, they have a sleep room that's like a quiet room, and some people go to sleep or take a 2-hour nap or whatever, but some people go the full 24 hours. You know, but whatever. It's a good experience, and it is 24 hours long, and you are cordially required to come. That one counts as 5 homework assignments. And as you might imagine, the penalty assignment will scale appropriately. So I might throw out there, while this might seem mean, trust me, this is for your own good. This will benefit you in the future, even if it seems like it's a unreasonable ask right now. I know you all have busy schedules and things like that, but suck it up and do it while you're young. We just had our event up at Acuity that we have every single year, and some of the former students were on a panel, and they asked them, what was the thing that helped you the most in your college experience? And almost every one of them said the hackathons. So, I mean, you get out of them what you put into them type thing, and sometimes our topics are better than other topics, but you learn a lot in that 12 or 24 hours that exceeds what you're going to learn in a classroom or something like that. So get involved in a lot of these extra things and skip a work shift, work a secondary shift, whatever. Okay, so that's it for those things. I'm trying to think if we have any other required events. I think that covers it. Yeah, I think that covers for the required events for this semester. There'll be some encouraged events, strongly encouraged events. We do already have the, I'll put it out on Slack, so all of you should join the 470 group on Slack for announcements, and also be regularly checking Slack. For those of you who are interested in getting being able to work a couple of hours here and there for the department, we have budgeted for 36 hours of student work labor per week. We rarely use all of that. As a student worker, you can work a maximum of 18 hours on campus across the board. If you are interested in possibly working 1 or 2 hours, even just sometimes, like, hey, we need some help, let me know. I'll have you go ahead and get the sheet from Human Resources so we can get you on the docket, because from time to time we're going to need help setting up for things and stuff like that. And we're happy to pay you, but you need to be on the books to be able to do that. All right. So even if your intention is that you don't really have time, and every now and then you might be able to throw us 2 hours to help set up for something, that's fine. I'm not saying you have to give me a schedule, but if you're on the books, then I'm able to pay you for that 1 or 2 hours of your time. Sound good? So if that's something that you are interested in, or if you historically see that you get drug in to help with stuff related to the department, doesn't cost me anything to pay you your whatever is $7.50, $8 an hour, whatever they pay. It's in our budget. So I'm happy to pay you, but you got to be on our student worker thing. If you work for another department on campus, nothing prevents you from being on our books as well. You just cannot exceed 18 hours in a single work week across all your positions.
Usually.
Well, officially, that's the official university stance. 18 hours is the maximum a student can work on campus.
Oh, I thought it was 16 actually.
It's 8. I'm about 98% positive it's 18.
Yeah, it
It's
probably
18.
is. I just remember wrong.
It's just that Kyle always approves whenever you go over 18. Like, oh, you need to go over 18?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, at some point, though, it would be Human Resources might catch that.
Right.
Yeah, it's not again, you can probably do, if you every now and then worked an extra hour a certain week, you can bank it, but I'm sure that's still unofficially frowned upon. But
Right.
the official stance of the university is maximum of 18 hours as a student worker per week of on-campus employment. Outside of that, they have no jurisdiction, let's say, but that's the punchline. So if you are interested or willing to help out around the department from time to time, or you're actually interested even in a regular basis, come talk to me. But let's get you on the books so we are able to reimburse you for your time when you go and help. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything I forgot? All right. So let's start talking about Scheme. Class gets out at 5 till, right? 11:55?
Yeah.
Oh, plenty of time to even give you a homework assignment.
It's gonna be download Steam.
Well, actually, do you want us to use anything special with Dr. Racket?
I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. So as a starting point, let me do this real quick. So I have a link to it up on Blackboard, this software called Dr. Racket. Download it. I think I gave you the link right to the download page. It'll detect what kind of computer you're on. If it's a Mac, it'll give you the Mac downloader, Windows, whatever, blah, blah, blah. All right. Once you're in here, see, originally this product was called Dr. Scheme. I'm sure there's a rationale why they called it Dr. Racket eventually. It's been kind of paired with this book for a long time. So up top here where it says language, the default language, so if you go choose language, the default language might be like beginning student or something like that. I don't know what it is for the default.
Yeah, beginning student.
Beginning student. All right. So you do want to go under teaching languages here and choose advanced student.
Okay.
So the beginning student, it kind of hides certain things from you and stuff like that. We'll have less problems with advanced students. So just choose advanced student right off the bat, and that will do less whatever.
We're going to be using a lot of the lambda operator.
Well, yeah, lambdas are extremely, they're the core of what you'll be doing in here.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so, and if you don't know what that means, that's okay. I am assuming you don't know what that means, so we'll talk about it. Because again, we're going to be understanding what this class effectively is a car mechanic class. We are learning how your car is put together. We are learning how programming languages are put together. What does it look like under the hood? And if you had to build one, what would it take? And then we're actually going to build one. And then we're going to actually have homework assignments using the language that you built. Okay, so did I get Keynote open here? And I will share a link to this on Blackboard as well. So this is fall. What year is it? 2019? All right. So we're going to start off by introducing a function called car. Now, before we do that, we want to talk about something called a list. What's a list? Collection of things. All right. So we're going to say lists are to Scheme as like strings are to Java. Okay. Java is kind of a string-based language. In Scheme, as well as most functional languages, the core primitive is something called a list. It's a list of things. Those things can be our traditional types, ints and strings and things like that. But a list will start off with an opening parenthesis, then it'll have an item, a space, an item, a space, an item, yada, 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 item, closing parenthesis. Now, since Scheme is a functional language, and it's a list-based language, the typical syntax for a function call in Scheme is open parenthesis, name of the function, param1, space param2, dot, 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 param n, something like that. All right? So, for example, if I wanted to add a couple of numbers together, I can say add 1, 2. It's add is not, yeah, it's got to be the plus sign here. So there's the function named plus sign that takes two parameters, 1 and 2, that produces the answer 3. All right? Now, if I wanted that to instead give me the list that had 3 elements in it, the plus sign, the 1, and the 2, I would have to quote it like that. So you put a little single quote before it. That's kind of like the backslash character in our traditional languages that say, do not actually run this as a function. Treat this as a list. Go ahead.
Are you able to list it without showing the single quote in the answer, or is that just part of it?
What do you mean?
Like when it says list quote.
Oh, this is because that guy is treated as the string plus sign instead of the function plus sign. Because if I just, I'm guessing it'll work for this. If I just say that, this guy is actually a lambda procedure, is what that guy ultimately translates into.
I have a question. So then, in your list, would that be only 1 and 2, or would that include
3 things.
Oh.
3 things. This is a list of 3 things. So if I say, give me the length of that list, it tells me there's 3 of them. So this guy this is the list function that creates a list with these 3 elements in it. Or I can say, length of the list plus 1, 2, and that also gives me a 3.
And I have a question. Would that plus is considered as a string, or is it? How about
It's a
1?
string.
How about 1 and 2?
Ints, numbers. It's a loosely typed language. So, well, the type inference engine that will figure out what kind of value you're dealing with when you pull stuff out. All right, but this is a list-based language where a list has open parenthesis, some things separated by spaces, closing parenthesis. If you don't have a quote in front of the list, it will treat the very first thing as the name of a function and try to apply that function to the rest of the items as the parameters. So sometimes you'll get, like you just saw a few minutes ago, I tried to use the add function. It says, I don't know about a function called add. Make sense? But if you just want to create a hard-coded list, you start with a quote, open parenthesis. Just steal this guy from here. And that will give you a collection of those things and not try to execute it. Make sense? Okay. So next time we're going to start talking about cars and coulders, which we're going to spend quite a bit of time. And these are list manipulation tools. We'll also talk about cons, constructor for lists. All right. So between now and Wednesday, obtain the textbook, preferably by ordering it off of Amazon. Or I gave you a link. It goes to MIT Press. It tells you all the places you can buy it from. Maybe start getting those events marked off in your calendar and getting work canceled or finding replacements, all that jazz. Sound good? All right. See everybody on Wednesday.